Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, George Stoia here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. Welcome in the first official Gameday Preview. This is the SoonerScoop.com Gameday Preview presented by Football Factory, BigGameUSA.com/scoop. If you're interested and you want one of these fine, beautiful footballs that Oklahoma will be using on Friday evening and really throughout the season, we'll have a little bit more information on that. You can go to BigGameUSA.com/scoop if you want to get it right now, and then it might be there by the time we get done with this. We talked to Kevin Copp, the play-by-play voice for Temple. Yep. I was about to say Iowa for some reason. I think I'm thinking of somebody else. But talked to Kevin Copp, got a rundown of everything that's to come for the season opener. And, George, we are finally here.
Yeah, super exciting. It's been feels like a super long off season and fall camp leading up to this, but I'm pumped to get down here on Friday. They officially sold it out.
Yeah,
I know that was announced today.
153 in a row
yep,
now.
153 in a row. So good job by the OU fans selling it out. And I think I know it's a Friday night and it's at 6:00, but I think it's gonna be a pretty good atmosphere.
No, it's gonna be a great atmosphere, and I think the weather, as we've been praying for here, is it's supposed to be exceptional come Friday evening.
Rain? Any rain?
I think there's some rain in the afternoon hours, maybe the morning hours, but I think that's going to be welcome because the cold front has to move through and build up some storms, and then on the backside of that, it's going to set up for a fantastic week one of college football. Oklahoma obviously getting underway, and I think that we've been talking about this for so long. It's like, all right, what haven't we talked about when you're talking about this 2024 football season? There's not a lot. I mean, obviously, the defense expected to be pretty damn good. Offensive line questions. What's the health situation? You did talk to Brent Venables on Wednesday, which is going to be kind of an interesting new bit that he is forced to do just in terms of the SEC teleconference or the coaches teleconference. You did get some information on a couple of guys going into Friday afternoon.
Yeah, I asked him if he thought that Nick Anderson or Andrell Anthony would play. He told me on the teleconference that Nick Anderson will be out and that Andrell Anthony will be available. So we'll see if that means Andrell's going to play. I think that is kind of an indication that he is. Sure. But, he's certainly going to be suited
up.
It's
a little bit ahead of schedule from what I think that I would have thought maybe a month ago.
We all thought maybe the Tennessee game.
Yeah.
Maybe he would play a week before that just to get kind of back into the groove of things, but it sounds like he's going to maybe give it a go here on Friday, which is great news. On the flip side, Nick Anderson won't be available. Now, I don't believe that's a serious injury. I know Brent said on his coach's show earlier in the week on Sunday that he's day-to-day, so I would anticipate Nick's getting close. I'm sure they don't want to rush it. I think that it's one of those things where, if you can give him an extra week, you do it. And so, positive news and a little bit of negative news.
All right, you want to give a little bit more bad news that we maybe suspect going into the season opener, and we're talking about the offensive line, of course. We've kind of cataloged it here over the last month just in terms of it's been a nicked-up group, a banged-up group. Any movement there? What's the latest that you know in terms of availability?
I think that Jake Taylor is pretty questionable. I would even lean towards maybe doubtful. Now, would it shock me if he went out there and tried to give it a go and tough it out? No, but I think that he's kind of in the same boat as Nick Anderson, where he's trying to get back from an injury that's not terribly serious, but is one of those things where you're going to be cautious. Again, I think they kind of hinted at that too when they released the depth chart. Jake Taylor was listed as an or with Spencer Brown. It would not shock me if Spencer Brown is the starting right tackle in this game. Same with obviously Nick Anderson or Brenen Thompson. So again, he's one of the guys. I know that Branson Hickman's been working his way back. I think he's going to give it a go. Garen Hatchett as well. Josh Bates, we'll see. I would also put him in the questionable area. So that's kind of the injury report right now, I think, heading into Friday.
A little bit of wiggle room, obviously, with a Temple team coming to town, coming off of 3 consecutive 3-9 seasons. They haven't been to a bowl game in 6 years. It's a rough go, and I think that Kevin Copp will kind of cover everything. They got a trio of quarterbacks right now, kind of going through that. I'm not sure that the head coach Stan Drayton even knows who Seth Luttrell is, considering you mentioned that he's the defense coordinator for Oklahoma, which would be quite interesting. But let's get into it. We talked to Brent Venables. Obviously, he did get a question about Temple that we heard on Monday, and it took 33 minutes to get into it, but simply put, Temple's not a very good football team. they're going to have trouble winning football games this year. And I think you know that. Obviously, Oklahoma 42.5-point favorite going into Friday night season opener. But, it is kind of interesting. Like, first start for Jackson Arnold in Norman. It's Danny Stutsman's last first start in Norman or last first season opener. I don't know. It's just there's some interesting storylines with guys that we know and are familiar with.
Well, we get to see the team for the first time. Like, there's so many question marks that you're going to have answered at least somewhat in this game. Now, are we going to know if Jackson Arnold is truly a great starting quarterback in college football? Probably not. But if he goes out there and throws for 5 touchdowns and is perfect in the game and doesn't have a whole lot of incompletions and doesn't turn the ball over, that's a great sign.
Sure.
Who's rotating on the offensive line? Like, that's something very curious about. Like, does Jacob Sexton only play left guard? Does he get some left tackle in? Does he play some right tackle if they think Jake Taylor's going to be out a while? What does Andrel Anthony look like if he's able to give it a go? Gavin Sawchuk, Javonte Barnes, 2 guys that are, should be the healthiest they've ever been in their careers. Like, what do they look like explosiveness-wise? Defensively, what's that defensive line rotation look like? Can David Stone, have a big game, in a game that he's probably going to get a lot of reps? Do they have a pass rusher? I was thinking about this yesterday, Eddie. Last year in the Arkansas State game, I remember, the storyline coming out of that. Obviously, OU played great and killed them. They didn't get a sack in that game. And there was a lot of people that was the first red flag that people were like, wait a second, do they not have pass rush?
It's not everything about, you're just max protecting and all that kind of stuff.
And I think we chalked it up to, Arkansas State was getting the ball out quick and they were doing max protection. And then it just kept going and it ended up OU just didn't really have a great pass rush a season ago. And so it's like they should be able to get after Temple and get after this, whichever quarterback Temple plays back there. So that's what I want to see. I want to see an R. Mason Thomas dominate, a Caden Woolard. What does he look like in an OU uniform? And then on the back end, I think you're going to see plenty of Danny Stutsman early in the game, Billy Bowman. But what do some of those new guys look like at safety and Peyton Bowen and Robert Spears-Jennings, or at linebacker, Kip Lewis Carter, right? The first real action we'll get to see Lewis Carter. So I get it. Temple is not a good football team, but that doesn't mean that there's still not a lot to learn and a lot to take away from this game on Friday night.
You would think that there's going to be a lot to learn here over the course of, obviously the next couple weeks in the non-con as everything ramps up to the big Tennessee game, which I think that we're going to probably be sick of talking about Tennessee here over the next month until September 21st. But first things first, you got to get into the season opener. Here is Brent Venables giving a little bit of a scouting report on the Temple Owls, as well as hearing from Danny Stutsman, Jackson Arnold, as well as Kendall Dolby.
Yeah, good. I wondered. We are playing Temple. Coach Drayton going into their third year, and they got a lot of transfers. And so they returned some really good players up front on defense. 34 has been a really good player that is a Power 5 type of guy, in my opinion. They brought in 7 or 8 transfers in their back end. They're supposed to, again, they come from everywhere too. Guys that were starters at other schools expect an improved version of their back 7, longer, and supposed to have more speed and playmaking ability there. They'll be aggressive in what they do. And then, on offense, their last several games, last 3 games in particular, 4 games, they really, and again, they had different moments, but they really started playing well the back half of the season. Even though they lost 3 in a row, they actually performed well statistically speaking, and points where they started getting into a rhythm. They got a quarterback battle. One's a little bit more of a pocket guy, one's more of an athletic guy, one's a junior college guy, one transferred from Rutgers. And they both have had their different moments of success, and they use a lot of 2 tight ends, and like a lot of people, and then they give you multiple sets out of the 12 personnel. Really like their running backs; they can get vertical quickly and got game-breaking speed, and they have some excellent wideouts too that can take the top off the defense, and their ability they want to be able to run the ball and screen it and boot it and take shots and those types of things. Utilize some tempo, but also they'll do times where they'll huddle up, things of that nature, and then they're going to be really aggressive in their kicking game. Coaches come their background where they block a lot of kicks and take some chances, and so I like that. So that'll be a challenge for us in that regard.
Yeah, I'm super excited about Friday. Obviously, opener, like you said. For us, for Coach V, he always says, the next game is the most important game, and for us, that's how we're treating it. It's the most important game for us, and we're all super amped up and super excited to play.
I mean, a little bit. I was in the training room, and Caleb Kelly walked up to me. That was a guy who was a 6-year on my freshman year, so that was a little crazy. And now I'm a senior, so it's crazy how time flies. We were just kind of reminiscing on when he used to just hang out with me at Haynes and Hall, and so now it's kind of like a full circle moment. And it's kind of surreal, man, how fast the time goes. I just remember freshman year, you tell the young guys, they don't believe you. I mean, I didn't. But now your time's come. It's a little sad, but I mean, I'm happy to be with the guys that I came here with, and just like Billy, Ethan, Jalil, and just excited for one last ride.
Everybody, to be honest, I feel like this year, obviously, y'all know, the depth is crazy. We have so much depth from second string to third string. Everybody's ready to go, and everybody has that chip on their shoulder. If you were third string, you thinking it could be one play and I could be in there, and everybody's willing to work and everybody's willing to make a play. So
yeah, I mean, obviously we're such a multiple defense. They're going to have a lot of motions. I don't want to go too much into the game plan stuff, obviously, but we know how they're going to attack us. We bring a lot of stuff. They're going to try and move the pocket, and we're kind of expecting a lot of that.
They brought in a running back that's about 240. Does that kind of excite you as a linebacker, even though, that's a load?
Whoa. All right. Whoever they got back there, I'm excited to compete. Like I said, I had Tolly Walker in the room last year, so that doesn't get much harder than that. So I'm excited for what they have.
A great reaction from Danny Stutsman being asked about Ian Twain Littleton, I believe, the 240-pound running back from, I think it's Maryland, I want to say, is where Temple got him.
It's a big boy.
It's kind of the theme that you'll find with our interview coming up here with Kevin Copp, the voice of Temple. A lot of turnover in between year number 2 and year number 3 here for Stan Drayton and Temple. Is it going to be hard to kind of keep everything within focus just in terms of game 1 and maybe even game 2 and 3 in the non-con of, okay, don't want to overreact, but we really like this or we really like that?
I think it will be somewhat hard because even again, I went back and watched some of the games from a year ago, and early in the season, I forgot, Marcus Major was probably their best running back. He had a really good.
There's nothing better than an early portion of the season take, right?
You had Marcus Major, you had Gavin Freeman, being electric on punt returns. It was kind of a different team early in the season. I think you have to remind yourself that, and especially in these non-conference games where, you should win by, several scores, even 30, 40 points in some of these games. And so I think you have to tap the brakes a little bit, but you still, I think, can be optimistic about certain things, such as a Bauer Sharp. If he goes out and just tears it up these next couple of weeks, that's a great sign. You want all of those things to happen. Or an Andrell Anthony, you'll be able to tell, does he still have his speed, right? Is he able to break away from a team like Temple like he should? That doesn't mean he's going to break away from Tennessee, but I think some of those things you can kind of, see if it's, kind of back to normal, especially with injury guys. But I don't know, Eddie. I think it's going to be tough. And it's I don't want to take away from these games, but it's certainly one of those things where they're really not going to be tested, and we're really not going to know a ton about this group until September 21st.
Well, make sure that you're watching everything here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel, because we will have plenty of takes coming up, obviously after the game with the instant reaction and everything in between. You know what? A good way to kind of keep yourself involved in the game if you are taking in a team that is 42.5 points better than the other team.
What's that?
Just get a little bit of action on the game, and that's going to Prize Picks. You can do that here, as you see behind us. All you got to do is go to Prize Picks. You can download the app. You can go to the website as well. Yeah. And all you got to do is create an account for yourself. This is legal in Oklahoma. You don't have to worry about, hooking up with the bookie after the game, all that kind of stuff. You're going to lose anyways on the second half. There's no Pac-12, but there are still games to lose on. Just play $5. You get $50 instantly. Use the code SoonerScoop, as you see there on the screen on Prize Picks. And it's something that we have done before. It's something that we kind of have fun with around here at the office.
Yeah, I actually put in some picks this weekend. I have Jalen Milroe to throw over 250.5 passing yards, and then Graham Mertz for Florida to throw underneath or less than 249.5.
I like
yards.
that. With kickoff up in Boulder tonight on Thursday night, I went with Shedeur Sanders under 304.5, 304 passing yards, so he has to be below, obviously, 305. Like, and I'm going to match that with a little Wednesday night action. You might be watching this in the future here, but I'm going for the entire algorithm here. Angel Reese under 14.5 rebounds on Wednesday night and some WNBA action.
That's the cool thing with Prize Picks is I think you can mix and match different sports. They have all the sports on there. I mean, baseball. I know I've done some of those when I get a little bored.
And then we'll be getting into the NFL stuff here in about a week's time.
So it's a lot of fun. It's super easy to use. Like Eddie said, you can go to the website or you can download the app. I know I have the app on my phone. Super easy to use. And so when you log in, you'll put in that code Sooner Scoop and get the $50.
Make sure you do that. And all you got to do is play $5 and you can get $50 back using the promo code Sooner Scoop. All right, without further ado, we will get over to our discussion with Kevin Copp. He'll be coming in with Temple, the voice of the Owls, talking about Stan Drayton as they enter the third year under the former Texas Longhorn running back coach. And he'll be coming to Norman, bringing his team to Norman. Might not be pretty, but we did talk to Kevin Copp, and here is our interview previewing Temple. Now it's time to take a closer look at the Temple Owls coming into town on Friday. Only the third time in school history that Oklahoma and Temple will be going at it. We welcome in Kevin Copp, the voice of the Owls for the football team. And Kevin, welcome in. Thank you for joining us today. I understand that, entering the third year under Stan Drayton, obviously just looking for improvement. It seems like that's kind of reading the tea leaves for the season, coming off of back-to-back 3-9 seasons. But just overall, kind of where is this program at right now? Haven't been to a bowl game in 6 years. Obviously looking to take that next step under Stan Drayton.
Yeah, no doubt. And thanks for having me on, guys. Really excited for Friday. But yeah, it's been interesting, right? You know, you had Temple in the later part of the last decade with 6 straight bowl appearances, and now it's been that long since the Owls have been back. But you think about everything that has changed in the college football landscape since then. You have conference realignment, NIL, transfer portal, all of this stuff has become so much more salient. And I think it's really made life a lot more difficult at a mid-major school like Temple than it was even 5, 6, 7 years ago. And so, Coach Drayton and his staff have had to navigate that, and it's been hard. You have good players that are going to have great seasons. Well, they're going to be picked off by, Power 5 or now Power 4 schools that are just kind of, circling there to see who they can come in and grab. And, likewise with coaches, if you have some success. And guys, on the flip side, get frustrated and leave programs for all sorts of reasons. So I think it's been a real challenge for everyone to navigate. They're kind of building the plane as they're flying it. And they really feel good about this year's team because in year 3, they've been able to get a mix of some guys in out of the portal, but now some of the guys that they've been able to recruit and develop. And Temple's always going to be a program where you need to develop guys. You're never going to get the 5-star guys coming in that you're winning recruiting battles against, blue chip SEC schools for. So you've got to get those under-recruited, under-heralded guys, get them in, build them up for a couple of years. And I think now they feel like they've got some of those pieces in place where they've got the right mix to be more competitive this season.
Kevin, I think it's safe to say Oklahoma fans don't know a whole lot about this Temple football team. So let's dive into some of the names that people should be familiar with. And let's start at quarterback. I know there's kind of 3 different guys there at quarterback for Temple. Who do you think gets out there first for the Owls?
Oh, that is a great question. I promise I am not holding back any state secrets from you guys. I truly do not know. They have really, even for those of us that are kind of inside the building and inside the program, they are really keeping this one under wraps. And I do think that it began this preseason as a genuine open competition between those 3 guys. Now, if you were reading between the lines in Coach Drayton's Sunday press conference this week, he said that as coaches, they now have a clear 1, 2, and 3, but they're not going to share that information until they need to on Friday night. So I do think it's either going to be Forrest Brock or Evan Simon. They're more of the pro style, kind of a traditional quarterback, if you will, and they've got more experience. Forrest Brock played some at the JUCO level. He's been in the program for a few years. We saw him get in some cleanup time last year in a couple of blowout games. And Evan Simon has, probably the most experience of anyone on the roster, certainly the most Division I experience. He's a transfer from Rutgers. He actually has a win at Lincoln Financial Field as an opposing player. So he's been out there before, quarterbacked at Rutgers, has come into the program, and I think has been really impressive. So, I do think it is a true coin toss from anyone's outside, prognosticating, I'll go with Evan Simon as the possible guy. And then I wouldn't be surprised Tyler Douglas, who's the third one listed on that depth chart, though they're all co-number ones. Tyler Douglas is a redshirt freshman, but he's got a little bit more speed than those guys, more of a dual threat. He can run. So, even if he doesn't start, I could see him coming in for some running packages and some things like that. All that to say, who knows until we get out there on Friday night. That will be a question that I'm looking forward to have answered myself.
Much like everybody else, and you mentioned it, maybe a friend and a foe just in terms of the transfer portal. There's a number of new names on the offensive side of the football, particularly sharing in that backfield. Antwain Littleton, who it sounds like is just a monster of a running back in there. How much focus just in terms of improving the run game from a year ago? I noticed that they only had, I think it was 4 games over 100 yards on the ground. I would imagine with somebody like a Stan Drayton, there is a focus on getting that run game going a little bit.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. I think, for me, that is my biggest key coming into the 2024 season for Temple is needing to be able to run the ball more effectively. In the last 2 years under Coach Drayton, they've really struggled. Obviously, from his work at Texas and prior, he knows running backs, he knows running game. He's got a lot more to worry about now as the head coach of this program than just focusing on the run, but there is no doubt that he wants to implement that style here. And you're going to have to, right? Go back to our last conversation that we just had about these quarterbacks. All of them have some question marks. All of them are unproven in some ways. And so, the biggest way that they're going to be able to take pressure off of whoever that is to establish the run game. They don't have an E.J. Warner who was at quarterback the last 2 years who was going to throw the ball 55, 60, 65 times a game. That's not going to be a blueprint for this Temple team. They're really high on Littleton. Yeah, you just look at the size, 6'1", 240, but they believe he can be, in addition to that kind of battering ram, third down goal line guy, I think he can develop into an every down back for them. But I think the real key with the running game, they've put that squarely on the offensive line. I think they feel good about the group of running backs that they have. They feel like they have guys that are talented enough to get the work done in the backfield, but they need more consistency on the offensive line. They've had so many injuries at that position in the last 2 seasons. They feel like they've got some more depth this year, and so I think that's going to be the key to making the run game go, which in turn is going to make everything else go for Temple.
Who are some of the pass catchers and the skill positions that maybe Oklahoma fans should keep an eye on going into Friday night?
Well, one shorthand, because you said that, obviously Oklahoma fans are not going to be too familiar with this Temple roster. Honestly, with all the transfer portal and the changes, there's a lot of guys that we're just learning for the first time. But a really good shorthand for anyone that's watching the game on Friday night, when you see a single digit on a jersey, that's a guy to pay attention to because those jerseys are awarded by the players. They're voted on by the players. It's a badge of honor within this Temple program. Going back to the last couple of decades, really, when Al Golden started to build this program back in the early 2000s. And so that's always a good shorthand for a guy that's one to watch. And I think, keeping with the theme of the wide receivers and the pass catchers, you've got 2 single digits at that position. You've got number 1, Ian Stewart, who's built like a tight end, plays wide receiver. He's been banged up due to injuries, a Michigan State transfer who has suffered some injuries each of the last 2 seasons. He's back right now healthy. I think he opens some things up, but Dante Wright is really the one to watch. He's a Colorado State transfer. He's wearing number 5 this season. He's in his graduate season. He's been around the program for a couple years. Really quiet and a little bit undersized, but he's got great speed. He's probably got the best hands of anyone on the team, and I think those 2 guys there, are going to be ones to watch. Interestingly, this is a team that has thrown to the tight end a lot in the last 2 seasons, and they don't really have someone that projects as that big pass-catching tight end. So with the new quarterbacks, the lack of, returning talent, at least catching the ball at tight end, I think it's going to be more to the wideouts, and I think those 2 guys are going to be the ones to focus on.
Kevin, on the other side of the football, I know Brent Venables spoke very highly of that side of the ball during his press conference, said that they brought in a lot of new guys in the secondary, also had some high praise for a couple guys up front on that Temple defense. Who are some guys on the defensive side of the football that OU fans should know?
Well, yeah, and again, I'll turn it back to that single-digit conversation. I think it's really interesting on the defensive side to highlight 2 of those guys. I'll start in the secondary with Andreas Keaton. They call him AK, 6'2", 200-pound senior safety. And what was really interesting, he's been given a single digit. It's his first year in the program coming in as a transfer. So, that tells you what his teammates think of him, what his coaches think of him in terms of the leadership that he's brought. And, how they've described the secondary is that Keaton is going to be out there and they'll rotate the other positions around him. So, I think they really feel like he's going to be the centerpiece of this secondary. And then up front, you've got another incoming transfer who's been awarded a single-digit number 7, Latrell Jean. He's a transfer out of FAU, brings some size up front, 6'3", 280. Temple's moving from a 3 front into a 4 front this year, so he's going to be in the middle of that defensive line at a D tackle spot. And they really seem very high on these two guys coming in. So haven't seen game action for them in a Temple uniform, but I think those are going to be two to build around. And then one returning guy that's worth keeping an eye on is at the middle linebacker position. He's also a single digit. He's going to be wearing number 0, and that's DJ Woodbury. He's been in the program a long time, actually predates Coach Drayton and his staff, but he's stuck it out. He's been behind a couple guys that have gone on to the NFL. Last year, Jordan McGee and Evandy Rigby were both linebackers that are now on with NFL teams. McGee was drafted in the 5th round, and Rigby was signed as a free agent. So, they lost a lot of talent at linebacker. I think that's going to be an interesting spot to keep an eye on, but they really seem happy about the progress that Woodbury has made. And now with the new signal calling helmets where you're able to have that helmet communication, he's going to be the guy out there for Temple with the radio helmet getting those plays called in.
Real quick, just special teams wise, they have any guys that are returning, any guys that are known? I know that the depth chart wasn't too kind with singling anybody out.
No, well, you have Dante Atten, who was a freshman punter last year. Like so many teams, they went to Australia to get him, came in having never even played or seen a snap of American collegiate football. So he's back for his true sophomore season, and I think a guy that, with a year of development and familiarity with the sport, they're really high on him in terms of his ceiling. Place kicker's brand new. Maddox Trujillo coming in. They really struggled kicking the ball last year, struggled on kickoffs, and struggled in field goal kicking. So, he's a guy that they believe can kind of shore up that special teams, but it's one thing to see it in practice. It's another thing to see it, on the road on a Friday night in Norman. So we'll see if Trujillo gets an opportunity there, but he's probably going to be the number 1 guy at the place kicker spot.
Kevin, last question for me. Obviously, this is a game Temple comes in, 42-point underdogs. What would deem this a successful game for Temple? Like, what is the takeaway? Obviously, they would like to win the game and surprise the world, I'm sure, but what would deem a successful game for Temple walking out of Norman?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And yeah, at the end of the day, I think Temple has embraced the challenge. I think they've gone about this the right way. I mean, this game has been on the books for a long time, long before Coach Drayton even got here. So, he's known that this is something that he's inheriting, and Oklahoma is going to make the return trip next season, which we're all excited about. We've got one more leg down in Norman in 28. But the reality is, Week 2 is at Navy. It's a conference game for Temple. It's the one conference win that they had last year. They beat Navy 32-18 at home. And if you want any path to 6 victories this season and Temple getting back to a bowl game, it starts with a Week 2 win at Navy. And so, I think the key is to get to see some of these new guys. There's so many new pieces that we've talked about. Obviously, we're going to find out who the quarterback is. We're going to get to see this running game hopefully revamped and in action. I think really the key for Friday night is seeing enough pieces in place in a competitive environment, on the road. It's the toughest game that Temple is going to face all year, bar none. And there's not even really a close second when you look at the road ahead. So if you can come out of this and have some pieces that you can build around, regroup and get ready for Week 2 at Navy, Temple's got to come out of these first 2 games 1-1. If they're 1-1 and 1-0 in the conference, I think just about everyone would sign for that. And of course, then you come in and you just try to take your chance and make some college football history here on Friday night.
He's Kevin Copp. He will be on the call Friday night here in Norman when Temple and Oklahoma open up the season. Kevin, we appreciate it. Have a safe travel down to Norman.
Likewise. Thank you guys so much for having me. Can't wait to get down there.
Thanks, Kevin.
Special thanks to Kevin for joining us. It might be a little bit of a tough year for Temple. Obviously, I think picked damn near the bottom of the AAC. Sounds like the quarterback situation, but, hopefully they can get a couple wins. Obviously not on Friday night in Norman, but maybe they can get a couple wins and get that thing moving forward, or maybe they're going to be looking for a coaching vacancy the next time Oklahoma sees them next season up in Philadelphia. A sponsor, obviously, the presenting sponsor here on the Gameday Preview, Big Game Football Factory, BigGameUSA.com/scoop, and this is the football. When Oklahoma takes the field this season in 2024, this is the football they will be using. Got the SEC branded logo on it. And, of course, it is the Nike Vapor Elite, exclusively from Game Football Factory or Big Game Football Factory. It's one of my favorite footballs that we've had around here. We've had a
super
couple
nice.
of them, right?
Oh, yeah, super nice football. Again, the logo I think looks super cool on it. You can see it right there. So it's a good piece to just have laying around in your house, or if you want to display it. I know some people want to put it on display or just be thrown around at your tailgate or something like that. I think it's a pretty cool piece.
This football also was handcrafted and customized to the specifications of what Jackson Arnold wants in a football, which is kind of cool. So you can get your hands on this. All you got to do is go to the website down there in the right-hand corner, biggameusa.com/scoop, and you get the authenticity.
Wow. You're nailing it.
I was really scared. As it was coming out of my mouth, I was scared about what I was about to say, which, usually is par for the course. But special thanks to Big Game Football Factory being with us all season long on Thursdays or Fridays, with games, obviously coming up on Saturdays. It's going to be a little bit weird as we get to the end of the week, but special thank you to them. Check out biggameusa.com/scoop. All right, let's get into a little bit of some of the stuff that we talked to the players about. Obviously, Brent talked about, just the Temple scouting report, if you will, but I do want to talk about Jackson Arnold. Obviously, you wrote about him this week and kind of his not necessarily trajectory, but just kind of the path that he took to get to Norman. And obviously, being handed over the keys to a program, it can be uncomfortable for some people.
Yeah, I think he's embracing those expectations, and he's certainly not going to be a guy that's, I think, super vocal, right? I think he's going to maybe grow into that role, but he's always been a quiet kid. I know, sitting down and talking to his parents a few weeks ago, I did a big interview with them, and he's an only child, and somebody that I think is very humble and very intense. Like, I think that's one thing that I walked away realizing, is that this is a very intense competitor. Jackson is, and I think that doesn't always show, but I think he wants to be great. And I know that's kind of obvious to say, but I think he truly does. And he talked about it this week, talking about wanting to create his own legacy here at Oklahoma. He understands the history that comes with this place, especially at the quarterback position. And so that starts Friday, right? I know everybody kind of points back to that Alamo Bowl performance, but
this seems different, right?
Yeah,
like you had that month of practice, and maybe you got used to the idea of being it, but this does seem different going into a season in which his name's going to be kind of, I guess, tied along with whatever record Oklahoma puts out there.
Yeah, I mean, you look back at that Alamo Bowl performance, and we obviously, like to nitpick, and you look at the box score and you say way too many turnovers, and he would obviously agree, but I think we're quick to forget the situation he was put in. New play caller, running still the same old offense, but learning, what Seth Luttrell likes, how he calls a game. Three starting offensive linemen didn't play in that game. A couple injuries. Like, he was thrown into a really tough situation. Playing, I think we also forget, a really good Arizona team, that didn't have any opt-outs in that game. And we also forget that after starting the game as bad as he did, going down 13-0, 2 interceptions, he responded going 17 of 24, 263 yards and 2 touchdowns until that Farooq fumble that was returned, 87 yards for a touchdown. So he responded extremely well. So I'm excited to see what he does. Like I said at the beginning of the show, Eddie, I don't think we're going to walk out of Temple and be like, this guy is definitely 100% going to be a great quarterback. He's going to, be the next Heisman Trophy winner. We're not going to know that after Friday, but I do think he can kind of set the tone for this season and for himself if he goes out and performs extremely well. And I think he's going to. I think he's going to be able to move the ball up and down the field. They should be able to against this Temple team. I'm excited to see him run the football. I think that's going to be a big part of this offense this year. We'll see how much they do it on Friday, just because you don't want to get him hurt, obviously. But I'm excited to see what he does, because I do think he wants to set the tone and play really well on Friday.
As George said, Jackson was asked about, just the comfort in this being his program and everything that comes with being the quarterback at Oklahoma here the week of the season opener. And here is Jackson, as well as a couple of his teammates, talking about his development this summer.
How far do you feel like you've come just since the start of camp to now?
A lot. Again, a lot more maturing, a lot more becoming a leader, and getting really close to this group and creating more chemistry with this group. But I feel like overall through camp we built a lot of chemistry, a lot of leadership, a lot of camaraderie, and I feel like we're at a good spot right now.
Yeah, I watched Jackson come in. He's a great guy. He's becoming more. He is a leader. You know what I'm saying? He's becoming more and more of a leader day in, day out. he's leading the team. Man, he's taking over, and I can see him being a future Heisman candidate, in my opinion.
There's always going to be pressure being a quarterback at any Division I school, more so here with all the past Heisman winners and success we've had at this position. But, I mean, for me, I just try to stay off social media. That's really the cause of a lot of negativity and pressure. But really just focus on my job, focusing on what is in this facility, not what's said outside of the facility, and just really focusing on, getting better with your guys day in, day out, and just winning the day.
You mentioned kind of the legacy of quarterbacks here. Is that something you embrace, or is it something you kind of just try to stay away from and play your own game?
I feel like it's a little bit of both. I feel like you have to embrace it a little bit. It's the history of the school. It's what makes this program that much more special. I don't know how many. I think it's 4 QB Heisman winners, 4 or 5. That's a ton, and it's a ton to live up to. But at the same time, I want to create a name for myself, create a legacy for myself, and really, I don't want to be compared to one of those guys. I want to be the best version of myself, and hopefully I do get a statue out there one day.
Yeah, like when he goes against us, he's making plays. Like you can just tell he's a dog. Like Jackson is everything. Like I think Jackson's going to have a great season. Like I know the bowl game in some people's eyes wasn't the best for him, but he's going to be a dog this year, most definitely.
I feel like he has big shoulders. He'll be all good, in my opinion. He's a young guy, but mentally he's older. So he's just one of them guys that you don't treat him like a young guy. He doesn't act like one. He acts like a leader. He acts like he's been here for 4 years. So just excited to see him. He's taking over the team, and I can't wait for him to lead.
Look at George back there stunting on everybody. Interesting that you always find the
I was
camera like
laser focused there.
That's a guy that we talked about a little bit on Tuesday in the post-practice report, or on Monday rather, in the post-practice report, and talking about Jalil Farooq and kind of his road to get back to health. Obviously, now that Andrell Anthony is back, it seems like that maybe that group is a little bit further along in terms of rehab and getting back onto the field than maybe we thought they would be, and especially in light of the Jayden Gibson injury, it's going to be kind of fun to see this wide receiver unit come together.
It's a lot like Jackson in that I think the final game left kind of a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths regarding Jalil Farooq. Like he didn't have a great game, turned the ball over a couple times, and they were obviously huge turnovers in that game. But we forget how good he was at times, last year. You think of the Texas game and how good he was that. I forgot about the SMU game where he scored kind of the go-ahead touchdown there late in the fourth quarter. I mean, he was really good at times for Oklahoma a year ago, and he decided to come back. I know there was a lot of talk about, would he, try to go pro or something like that, or even transfer. And I think him coming back, his maturity, I know talking to him the other day, I talked to him a little bit one-on-one after that interview, and you can just tell the leadership that he has in this group. And so I'm excited to see what he does, especially leading that group. I think that he's definitely the unquestioned leader of that receiver room. And like you said, with Jayden Gibson out, they're going to need some guys to step up. Nick Anderson being out this week, like who can be somebody that can emerge? And I think Farooq is going to be a huge part of this offense, and I think he's going to help some of these younger guys. Think about this. It's great for a Zion Kearney or an Ivan Carrion or whoever to come in and play right away. I'm sure that would help him with reps, but it's also great to learn behind a guy like a Jalil Farooq or a Deion Burks or Nick Anderson, some of these veteran guys that are in that room right now.
You mentioned it. There's going to be a lot of opportunity within the wide receiver unit. And one of the guys that we talked to on Monday as well was Brenen Thompson, who finds his name atop one of the wide receiver positions on the depth chart. Kind of an interesting story. We saw glimpses a year ago. He's like a lot of the guys going into this season. It seems that we saw glimpses a year ago. How quickly can this come together? As of now, though, going into the or coming out of the preseason, going into the season, it seems like this is a guy, and talking about Brenen Thompson, that is ready to take that next step.
I think for him, the biggest thing is he wants to be known as not just a vertical threat. Obviously, that's how Oklahoma is going to use him a lot of the times. He's going to be running the 9 route and just getting behind the defense because he's probably the fastest guy on the roster. But it sounds like he's really improved all of his route running. And, Brent was quick to point out in his press conference on Monday that, hey, this is a guy that's really worked on things other than just being a deep ball guy and somebody that's really worked on his game. And I think that they're going to use him in some different ways. And I think that his ability to stretch the field, staying healthy, all of those things, I think could be a huge factor for Oklahoma this year in this offense. And again, he's just one of those guys. in that receiver room where you love the starters out there and Nick Anderson and, Jalil Farooq and Deion Burks, but Brenen Thompson, if you told me Brenen Thompson halfway through the year is one of their best wide receivers, I don't think it should shock you because of the way that he played in fall camp. You've seen the glimpses and what he can do. I think he brings a different element to this room.
A shocking 34 yards per reception last season. Obviously, there was only 7 receptions, and a couple of them were on the back end of the year. But, Jackson Arnold has a lot of talent around him, obviously, at the skill positions. We did talk to Jalil Farooq as well as Brenen Thompson about their roles in the Oklahoma offense going into the season, as well as Jackson Arnold talking about his tight end unit.
I'm truly excited, man. Can't wait to get out there with my guys, man. We put a lot of hard work in the summer and the spring. Just ready to get out there and showcase what we really about. So really excited about that, just to have a good game with my brothers.
What was this offseason like for you after having that injury late in the spring?
Every life is full of obstacles, so just me being able to be a better player off the field, try to be a better, a coach player, not being able to practice as much and doing a lot in the spring, dealing with a foot injury, just making me a better man. I've never been hurt in college, so that was the first time I had to really deal with that. So just getting better in that aspect.
Brenen, we saw flashes of your ability last year. What are your expectations for yourself this year, and how big of a leap do you think you can take?
I think they're the highest. I think I got the highest expectations, even over Coach V. I think my expectations of myself are higher than what he has of me. I'm trying to go win for this team. I'm trying to put this team first. I'm trying to do everything in my ability to win for this team.
You talk about developing as a wide receiver. What was the toughest part of that, or the thing that took the longest to get down?
I would definitely say just learning the route tree. You go to a place like Spearman, I'm not sure if y'all know really what that is or what that entails, but man, it's not a very big school. It's not a school where you got collegiate athletes coaching. It's not a school where you got guys that really know football too well. And so coming from a place like that, you got to learn everything. You got to learn coverages, which helped because I did play defense in high school, so that helped. But, man, you got to learn everything top to bottom.
It's been awesome. Obviously, had a great fall camp, a lot of yardage, had him running a lot. But he did a great job this fall camp with developing his route tree, and even in the off season in the summer too, did a great job developing his route tree, expanding on what he was already good at. And I credit that a lot to Coach Jones too. Fantastic coach, gets those receivers ready, and Brenen obviously had a fantastic fall camp, and I'm really excited about how he's going to contribute for us this year.
Honestly, man, everything. I've waited, since my junior year of high school, to be that guy, and fortunate to have a good camp, and along with the rest of the guys, and just definitely came out on top, and I'm excited, man. I'm really excited.
Can you describe the hard work that went into that?
Really, no, because it goes all the way back in the summer with Smitty. I'm sure as y'all know, had a great summer with Smitty, and just having the team around me, to lift me up when I'm down, vice versa with me to them, and just the grind. It's the grind of camp, the grind of summer, and just attacking everything.
Yeah, no, I'm super proud of Bauer. Obviously, you don't see that very often. First time Sooner in his first ever game as a Sooner. He's the captain. Obviously speaks highly to himself as a player and himself as a leader. I'm super proud of him. He's put in a lot of hard work, and I'm super pumped for him to see him out here on his first game Friday.
Hand up. I don't think that I had put 2 and 2 together that what Jackson just said. First game ever, he's going to serve as captain, Bauer Sharp.
Big time. Look, we've talked a lot about Bauer. I think that going back to the spring, we're like, this guy.
I think it was from the first time that we went to an open practice. It's like, oh shit, this is the guy that.
Because again, he's somebody that when you saw him in the transfer portal and OU started getting interested, you're like, Southeastern Louisiana has only played the position a year or so. Like what are they getting themselves into? But then you find out one that a lot of teams across the country wanted him. I think it was Utah was the other big program that Oklahoma was in a battle with to get him. And then you go out there and you watch him. And just run around. You're like, okay, this guy is an athlete, big guy, obviously has the right size. And then you hear about the way he plays. I think he could have a huge year, Eddie. And that's not just as somebody catching the ball. I think he's going to have some success there. But I think also blocking, they're going to rely on him a lot as somebody that can block in the run game.
Before we get out of here, let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, there's a lot of expectation for a defense to make a jump. We've talked about it, I think, since the middle of spring football, maybe even before spring football, when we found out that Danny was going to come back, that Billy Bowman was back, Woody Washington was back. You had this whole group of guys that were coming back to, I think really kind of put a stamp on what they've been able to do on the defensive side of the football. And I think that nobody out there needs a reminder of where this is coming from. what Brent Venables inherited and had to kind of really, just really basically change from day one in the Oklahoma football offices was a defense that was somewhat not a weakness.
Right. I think that from the moment Brent got here, he wanted to build a program that its identity was to be physical and play hard on defense and be a group that can stop some of the most high-powered offenses. And I think that it's trending in that direction. Like, when's the last time that you could say an OU football team's identity was the defense? Sure. It's been a long time. And so I think that this year that is going to be the case. Like, and that's not to say the offense can't have a really good season. I think it can. I think that it might take some time for it to click just because they have so many different pieces. But defensively, it shouldn't take long to click, right? You look at how many guys are returning, especially in key spots. Your Mike linebacker and Danny Stutsman, your strong safety and Billy Bowman, obviously your defensive end and Ethan Downs, and then all the other guys that maybe haven't played as much but have been in the system the last few years. It shouldn't take long to click. Then you bring in a guy like Zach Alley as your defensive coordinator, somebody that knows Brent Venables as well as anybody and apparently can teach the defense just as well as Brent, and maybe in a different way where it connects with guys a little quicker. There's reason to believe, Eddie, that this can be one of the best defensive units in the country and probably one of the best in the last decade for Oklahoma. Now they have to go and prove it, and it's a lot like Jackson. We're not going to know after the Temple game, right? Like, I think that if they go out and they shut out Temple, that'd be awesome. That'd be a huge step in the right direction. But even then, it's like, well, it is Temple. So we're not going to know for a little bit, but I think setting the tone, like I said with Jackson, early in the season, the defense going out, maybe getting a couple turnovers on Friday, maybe getting some sacks. Like, that's really where I want to see it. It's not even so much a shutout. Like, they probably should shut Temple out. But if they can get out there and get 3 or 4 or 5 sacks in this game, I think that would be huge, because that's the big question mark for me is, do they have guys that can get after the quarterback? And they should be able to do that against Temple of all teams.
We'll know in due time. Here is Danny Stutsman just talking about kind of bookending his career with a defense that I think Oklahoma fans will be proud of in 2024. Kendall Dolby talking about making the move to Cheetah and just the comfort of playing that position as the starter this season. And then obviously, of course, we got to talk to Jayden Jackson about possibly making history on Friday night.
How proud are you just overall, before you guys get into this, just the turnaround defensively that you guys undertook, and you've kind of been here from the start of it all?
Yeah, I mean, we've come a long way. I mean, I don't want to say anything yet. We still have a season to play. I know we have a lot to improve upon still. We made strides, looking back 2 years ago. I mean, me and Coach V, joke about it here and there. Now with Coach Alley coming in, just the strides we're making now, I'm really excited just to get out there and just prove what we already know.
To be honest, it was kind of hard for me a little bit, just because at Cheetah, you got to do a lot. You're in the box, you got to cover a man, zone. It was hard, but I feel like BV did a great job of helping me adjust to that position and work and build on that position. So I feel like I had a pretty good year.
Brent talked this morning saying that whenever you're playing defense, you have this image of yourself that you're 6'2", 225. What goes into that mentality?
To be honest, man, I feel like since I was a little kid, I've never been the biggest guy, the strongest guy, fastest guy, but it's just like a mindset. Like my dad always told me, like, you got to have that dog mentality, Not being the biggest, I feel like I have a chip on my shoulder, so I go out there like, I'm 6'2", 6'4", whatever it is. Like, that's my mindset. So,
what's been your role in helping Sammy learn that spot, and how different has he looked?
He's looked really different. I feel like, being an older guy or coming back, I feel like now that I love the position, I feel like it's my job to teach him more, and I feel like he's really been willing to learn as a young guy, and he's definitely going to make a splash this year for sure.
What's the hard part about Cheetah?
You said the hard part about?
Is there a hard part?
Yeah, like I said, at Cheetah, you a hybrid, so sometimes you might be in the box, sometimes you might be man on the slot man, or sometimes you might be zone. So it's just knowing your responsibility every play.
Can you quantify how much improvement there's been on the defensive front from last year to this year?
A lot. Like I said, it's depth everywhere. Depth, safety, corner, linebackers, defensive line. Like I feel like it's depth. So I feel like they've grown as far as from a first guy to a second guy to a third guy. Like everybody is on the same page and knows what they're doing.
This decision was everything I've ever wanted, everything I've needed. Faith, family, football. I know you guys heard me say this multiple times, but it's carried on throughout. The coaches being the same exact people that they were before they even recruited me. And so this decision was everything I expected coming in.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, the first time he's in with the ones, I'm like, okay, let's see what he got. And then he makes a few plays, and you're like, all right, I like that. And he keeps coming over, and you're like, all right, well, this dude's a baller, man. And so he starts making those plays, and him and Dom have done phenomenal, and DT as well. And you're like, all right, we really got some dudes up front that we had one practice that was clean, man. Didn't have to wash the jersey, and it's thanks to those guys up front. They do everything. It all goes through them. I mean, we talk about physical defense, and it starts with those 4 guys up front.
Like I said, the job isn't really there in my eyes and the whole defensive line's eyes, so it's nothing really, and just a blessed opportunity.
What have you done to impress the coaches?
What I've done is probably come in just recognizing blocks as quick as I did, and just doing technique. I'm a very technical guy, so pretty much anything the coach wants, I'll do, and anything that I've done bad that he needs corrected, I'll emphasize on correcting that. So.
Per the great Mike Brooks, he would be just the 4th Oklahoma Sooner to ever start as a defensive tackle in a season opener. Obviously, he'd be the first since Tommy Harris in 2001. The others, Corey Cowens in 1997 against Northwestern up at Soldier Field, as well as Marcus Lowe in 1987 versus North Texas, the year I was born. It's been a long time since something like that has happened.
You're
I guess
old.
That would have been the first time. Very old, George. Very old. And that's why these 6 o'clock games, you're kind of keeping me up past my bedtime. I think everybody knows that I get to bed rather early.
6 o'clock, that's actually, I feel like early for an evening kickoff.
No, I do like it.
I think it's going to be awesome having it at 6 o'clock. I know it's a little early for maybe people getting off work, but.
Well, you shouldn't be working on Friday.
No.
You shouldn't.
No one works on Friday
I mean,
anymore.
school's going to be out, so you might as well tell your boss that we should send out one of those, excuse notes.
Yeah.
Sorry, he's not coming to work. And he probably won't be here Monday either because he's going to get arrested.
That's a great idea. I know you and I will be working. We'll have the instant reaction after the game. That'll be back, as well as the Lexus post-game pod.
I know. Looking forward to all of this coming up here to start the year. I can't believe it's actually here, George. That's going to do it for the first Game Day Preview presented by Big Game Football Factory, BigGameUSA.com/scoop. If you're so inclined to get the football that we showed you earlier, toss it around before the game. It's going to be beautiful out this weekend. It's going to be beautiful on Saturday and Sunday as well when we take in week 1 of college football.
You got a prediction?
I'm very excited. For the game Friday night?
Yeah, for the game Friday
night. Let's go 63-10.
63-10. I have 59-3.
Okay.
59.
I don't think that's wrong.
I don't think so either. I think they're going to score a lot of points. I think they're going to want to score a lot of points, like build up, Jackson's
There's a lot.
confidence.
I wrote in the roundtable that you guys can read here before the game that it's kind of one of those things. It just feels like there's a lot of money to be made just in terms of confidence, chemistry, everything that comes with the start of a season. Reps.
Just get some of these young guys reps. Like again,
it's
I've said this a lot,
that
but like
this thing moves forward right during the beginning of the season and before you get to SEC football. You can't think of anything while people are talking.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting to see, can the defense keep them out of the end zone? Because I think that's kind of my big takeaway from the game is I want to see the defense stop them because I think the offense is going to be able to end up moving the ball around quite a bit. But also seeing some of the young guys, like I said, David Stone, I think I've said it several times, I could see him playing a lot in this game just to try and get him reps because I think by the end of the year, they're going to want to have him on the field a lot. And I think there's a lot of guys that could fall in that category. Lewis Carter. I think we're going to see a lot of Lewis Carter just because he needs to get game reps. You know what you have in Danny and Kobe and Kip. You're going to want to get a guy like Lewis Carter out there and get some game time. I think there's a lot of young guys that fall into that category.
There was 17 freshmen on that 3 deep that they released here at the beginning of the week. I think you're going to see a number of those guys coming up on Friday night. By the way, really good time. Soonerscoop.com if you're ready to join. We got a good promo going on, and you can get in on it, right?
Yeah.
Might as
Kickoff
well.
24, you get 50% off on the site. So go to Soonerscoop.com, use that promo code Kickoff24, and you're able to get it for 50% off, which lots of good stuff on there. I mean, you've got obviously Josh with some recruiting notes, as they kind of finish up the 2025 class, get into the 2026 class. Myself with some practice notes, the injury stuff that I mentioned earlier. If you're on Sooner Scoop, you would have known that before we recorded the show.
100%. All right, we will catch you, I guess, next week for a game day preview, but enjoy the weekend, enjoy the Labor Day. Everybody be safe out there, and we'll see you right back here on Friday night for an instant reaction post-game from the field at Gaylord Family Oakland Memorial Stadium. Just about I don't know. Think Zach Schmidt be able to kick it that way? I think he has the leg. I don't know about the accuracy, though. We'll see. That's why Tyler Keltner is starting on Friday night. All right, for George, I'm Eddie. We'll see you right back here on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel.